Hi, everyone. I'm Martha McGee, CEO and co-founder of Nine Dot Arts, and I have the pleasure of speaking with Mike Everett, Executive Vice President at CoralTree Hospitality. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Martha. It's good to see you.
You
Happy New Year.
too. Happy New Year. So you've spent more than 2 decades in hospitality across different sides, ownership, development, operations. And we've had the pleasure of working together on so many projects and so many different iterations of your career. But what is it about the hospitality industry that keeps pulling you back in?
Yeah, I think a lot about where I started in the industry as a 15-year-old working in a kitchen, learning from really accomplished chefs and having an opportunity to see at an early age what the business was about. And what excited me then is the same thing that excites me now, and what I like about the long-term impact and how certain things don't change about this business, which is it's about providing quality and experience, giving a guest something that they're going to remember. It may be as simple as a meal. It might be as complex or extensive as a vacation with a family. But those experiences and what people are after has never changed, and I like that. I like that continuity of what we ultimately offer. The way we deliver it, and the venues we have, and the product we provide, and the way people travel, the way they book, the way they behave, has obviously changed dramatically over the course of the last couple of decades. But the pure enjoyment of providing a quality experience and being part of, being tangentially part of someone else's great life experience, whether that's in a restaurant or a hotel or resort or a meeting or some other event that will have the ability to create a memory and create something lasting is really special. And so again, a lot of mechanics that go into how that gets delivered and how that guest experiences their stay or their meal or whatnot compared to 30 years ago. But that fundamental reason, kind of why we exist, what we do, what's the value we're providing to a customer, is the same now as it was 35 years ago when I was a teenager in a kitchen.
Okay, I don't know this story. So, teenager in a kitchen, what was your role? Where were you? And do you still cook now?
Yeah. So the answer to that last one is yes. Do the best that I can. I was very, very lucky to be introduced to a couple of accomplished chefs as a 15-year-old, and of all places, Billings, Montana, where I grew up.
Way.
And one of my mentors was a French trained chef. Also grew up in Montana, but a French trained chef who'd had a successful career in New York and San Francisco. Another Irish chef who'd been very successful in Philadelphia, who came together and created a restaurant, an amazing restaurant that's open to this day, 33 years later. That is essentially a French bistro, but an Americanized version of a French bistro that really fit the market, but also changed kind of the landscape of the city that I grew up in. I was lucky to have both of those chefs and one of the other owners of the restaurant mentor me, teach me how to cook, but teach me the business and the nuances of operating, what we all know is a really difficult business. That it's not the easiest industry to succeed in. And so, as I went through high school, working in this kitchen, it's a business I fell in love with. I fell in love with the some of these core aspects of hospitality I just mentioned a minute ago, and I loved the pace and the energy and the creativity and the fact that there was always change. The menu would change, the customers would change every night, the pace in the dining room and the kitchen would change by the hour, and I loved how, and still to this day love how dynamic that was, and it caused me to fall in love with the business that we're in, and put me on a career trajectory that has led me to the place that I'm at now.
Well, it's cool because, I can imagine I'm from a small town in Alabama. And so I can imagine being from Billings, Montana, and then being kind of launched into this almost international scene, working with a chef who's trained in Europe and using this as a catalyst and a door to open a whole world of opportunity. You talked about the business side a little bit. So I want to dive in on that for a minute because you mentioned change. And you were talking about change on kind of a micro scale, how things in a restaurant and in a hospitality environment can change every hour. But now you've been working in this industry for decades. So tell us more about the shifts of what's changed in the hospitality industry over time, what's constant, and what do you think about on the horizon?
Yeah, so I would almost look at it going backwards in time from where we are now to 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. And yeah, so much has just changed in the last, let's just take the last 5 years, which is, it's always easy to point to, how COVID modified our behaviors, or modified the types of places that people travel to or want to experience, or change the way we think about resorts versus cities. I think it probably the most monumental shift in my career has been over the course of the last 5 years, and to see the customer so focused on the resort and leisure side, and frankly the higher end of the market doing much better these days than it once did. 10 or 15 years ago, if you owned a hotel in an urban center, you were maybe not bulletproof, but you had a pretty good degree of confidence that convention business and corporate business and leisure on the weekend was going to fill your hotel. And if you're well located, success was going to come your way. And that is far from guaranteed these days. And it varies within the urban space. It varies so much city by city. And I think a big change that we see now that we wouldn't have seen 10 or 15 years ago is that the dynamics of each city that we're in is so different from Denver to Houston to Nashville to Boston to Portland to Los Angeles. There's so many different outcomes and different circumstances that are affecting the business today that it's much more challenging, much more divergent than it was years and years ago. There are other elements of how the brands have evolved, and also parallel to that, how independents have evolved over time. The brands today versus where they were earlier in my career, 20, 25 years ago, they're much, much larger. They're much more focused on distribution. Their abundance of soft brands that have now come out from all of the major brand companies has created a lot of traffic and frankly, a lot of confusion around, what exactly do all these brands stand for?
Right.
We at CoralTree today, we're predominantly independent hotels. We have a good handful of soft branded, hard branded hotels within the portfolio, but we still tend to operate in the independent space and have done that for a really long time. So the dynamics of the brands maybe don't affect us directly as much as other companies, but indirectly they definitely do, because what the brands are doing to grow their business, how they're positioning themselves, what the value proposition is to the customer is different than it was 10 or 15 years ago, which, as we're pursuing the same customer with independent hotels, what they're hearing, seeing, how they're interacting with the brand on social media directly impacts how we're going to go about it. And so those dynamics within the brand have changed dramatically. I think the major element that we talk about that's now become more prominent in the industry is the role of technology and how it replaces or complements the traditional service model that we've had in this business, whether that's in urban hotels or resorts, or in the restaurant industry. We as an industry are slow to adapt, generally speaking, when it comes to technology, when it comes to how systems and applications get implemented at a property level, we are slow to move. And so I think a big challenge in front of us is maximizing the value of technology, yet maintaining the personal touch that we need to bring. If a person's paying $1,000 a night, they want service, they value service, they like the interaction with someone at the front desk or a server. They want to speak to someone live who can answer their questions and give them advice about the local neighborhood that they're in. We don't see technology erasing that. We see technology as supporting that and helping those employees, helping the people within our building operate at a higher level and be more responsive to guests. But what happens with technology over the course of the next 5, 10, 15 years really will determine where our guest satisfaction ends up and where our profitability ends up. The business in general is challenged when it comes to margins right now. We don't see the revenue growth we did 8 or 10 years ago, but we are seeing the expense growth. And so how we weave technology into making our businesses more efficient, I think will be the next step in driving whatever margin growth we can over the course of the next few years.
So, of course, there's profitability. You also mentioned growth in the luxury market specifically. So you talked a little bit about how you're looking at using technology to support the bottom line. But with the growth in the luxury market, what kind of decisions do you make and how do you think of that strategically to grow your business in those fields? What kind of elements are you focused on for a luxury market versus, markets you might have looked at 20 years ago with a different lens?
Yeah. With the luxury market, again, a customer, hypothetical customer paying $1,000 a night and spending probably a significant amount of money in food and beverage and other services, whether that's the spa or other elements that are offered by a certain resort. The expectations are high. The expectations have only increased over the course of the last few years as properties have had a harder time reinvesting back into their physical plant. No secret that COVID dramatically hurt the profitability of our assets, which has caused many hotels and resorts to be long in the tooth and be in a spot where many of the physical elements are not addressed to the point that they should be, or the guest or the owner wants them to be. So within that luxury space, being in a position to find associates who do love the business, who want to be trained at a level that they can deliver very, very great service to a guest who's paying a big rate, who has high expectations, who wants a very thorough, amazing experience at a certain resort. So finding those employees, putting them in the right position to be successful, arming them with the tools that they need, is ultimately where success starts to come from. Again, technology can be a piece of that. I think if we are successful with our technology, if we remove some of what I might call commoditized services, or things that are boxes to be checked as opposed to deep value add to be provided, and if our associates are thinking about how to go above and beyond, how to increase the value of an interaction with someone at the front desk, they're not thinking as much about the phone ringing and the 4 calls that are backed up that no one can get to. If technology helps us support that and takes some of those more mundane tasks away and allow the team to do what they're best at, we're going to continue to drive our guest service. We're also be in a position to drive premium rates over time, because we're getting this guest service scores that we want. We're providing the guests with what they want. So that's really at the asset level, where the things we've always needed to do well: training, development, taking care of your employees, listening to them, giving them tools to grow, putting them in a position to succeed with the guest, is ultimately the foundation of our success.
So, when you think about these properties, a lot of the ones that you've worked on, they're really tied into the neighborhoods and the places that they're associated with. So, that might be a historic building, there might be local partnerships, intentional programming, like you said, employees that are super invested. How do you think about hospitality as a placemaking tool beyond just an asset class?
Yeah. So neighborhoods have always mattered, right? The location that you're in, where exactly you're positioned in a certain city, what's adjacent to you. All the real estate location is critical to what projects you work on. It's critical to what guests are choosing you or seeking you out. So that's never changed. Uh, what has continued to change and evolve, I think is exciting about our business, is how we as hoteliers, as hospitality professionals, I'll say, turn the building inside out. We don't have closed doors at the lobby. We don't have closed doors at the restaurant. These are 24/7, 365 businesses. And to the extent, we are bringing local business in, we're bringing local artists in, which is something you obviously do very well with. The type of programming, which could be it could be music, it could be certain events that we bring into a lobby or restaurant. If we're successful in doing that, and we have the local community engaging with
Hmm.
our hotel, frankly, bringing revenue, that's a piece of it.
Right.
But a guest coming into Denver from New York will know instantly whether there are locals from Denver, locals from the neighborhood who are frequenting a certain restaurant or bar, or they're attending an event. They're listening to music that is really special and unique. Those are the things that I think we need to be doing now. We are doing now, but need to continue to grow and evolve around. It used to be 25 years ago, you build a nice hotel, you have a great designer, a great architect, construction, whatnot. You have a great location. Maybe the brand is part of that. That got you to where you needed to be. The bar has been raised. And I think when you look at the younger customers who are coming up, not to say that the baby boomer generation doesn't appreciate what I just articulated,
Hmm.
but the consumer that's 25 or 30 or 35 years younger appreciates that maybe even more and wants even more of that connectivity, particularly as when you're staying in a destination or you're coming to a city for a certain purpose and you really want an experience. That customer is willing to pay more. And what's interesting and what we see is the younger customer in a lot of ways is willing to pay more for experience,
Yeah.
as opposed to something material than
Right.
maybe their parents, the older generation, have been willing to pay. And I don't think that trend's going away. We
Right.
think that we see it in our resorts of the next generation has not a completely different buying profile or set of
Mhm.
preferences, but
Mhm.
is very different than where we were 20 years ago.
So you've talked about sustainability and social impact as core business strategies. And that I think that ties in a bit with what you're saying about the evolution of the market and the buyer, and this tie in with the local community, like you're saying, to be a true authentic differentiator for those properties that are doing it well. Where do you think the industry is doing that right? And where do you think there's still some work to be done?
So I think within the areas of sustainability and social impact, I'll start there. I am a firm believer that when we consider those as strategies or verticals or buzzwords that need to be addressed within a building, we've already failed.
Mm.
As you know, I was fortunate to learn from some of the best in Walter Eisenberg and Zach Neumeier, who decades ago, they didn't have a buzzword behind treating people the right
Behind what they
way.
were doing.
It was
Yeah.
just what they did.
Right.
It's a behavior, not a strategy, really, at the end
Yeah.
of the day. And it's not optional. It shouldn't be optional. It shouldn't be that we are requiring or measuring necessarily everything that we're doing. It's a culture that should be built within, whether it's, the home office at CoralTree, it's at a property level, it's the general manager running that property, it's someone who has a certain passion around sustainability there. It should not be categorized. It should not be something that we feel obligated to put in a report. It's a cultural element that should be part of how we exist. And I think it's innate to the hospitality industry, right? We take care of people. We should be treating people well. We're in a certain point in history where that ain't happening. That ain't happening as much as it should, as much as, humanity should be taking care of itself, taking care of others these days. It's a different world that we live in. And so we view that as an opportunity, that's a challenge that we're at today as a society, but it's an opportunity for us to step out and lead and provide experiences, but also, treating our employees the right way, treating our community the right way, engaging with the right local organizations who we know we can support, and vice versa. That's something that I was fortunate to learn at a really early age, or just see it embedded in an organization. I think in the hospitality business, it's a duty that we behave that way.
So those things, they sound obvious, right? It sounds obvious that you should treat people well, and that, if you're treating people well and you're bringing the right elements into a property, then naturally people will respect the place more and bring their own, genuine experiences into it, and the local community will want to be a part of it. But there's a real difference between saying that and doing it. And you're overseeing massive projects around the country, starting with design and development, and then moving through opening, then moving through transitions. And you're at the intersection of this concept to execution, right? So how do you ensure that original design intent and those experiential goals that you're speaking about survive the realities of budget and timeline and operations?
The first, easiest, clearest answer to that is having the stakeholders around the table as soon as possible, not even on day one, but well before day one, for the purposes of defining vision, defining what the customer is going to experience at a certain hotel, what our associates are going to experience, and how they're going to operate, and how that project fits within its ecosystem in a city, amongst a competitive set, that could be a local competitive set, that could be a regional or national competitive set, and spending every second necessary to ensure that the operator, the owner, the design team, architecture, from an art strategy standpoint, this is a piece of how design is evolved and developed. It is so critical that team is together on day one, and that the 4 or 5 key elements of success continue to be reiterated amongst that team. What happens over time, budgets get tight, cost escalations come in, tariffs happen, whatever it is that puts pressure on a project, it becomes easy at some point for someone who's not been part of that process, that vision process from the get-go. It's easy for someone from the outside to say, I'm going to cut the rooftop out. I'm going to cut the rooftop in half. I'm going to eliminate the art budget. I can see these dollars in the budget, therefore it's easy for me to take them out.
Right.
What you can't see in a budget, or even in a pro forma, is the positioning and the quality and the guest experience and the ultimate delivery of what we do as hospitality professionals. That doesn't show up in hard numbers on a budget or a pro forma. And so it's our duty to maintain that integrity of, at some point, are we chipping away at the integrity of a project? We got to raise our hands. We have to tell an owner, or the owner has to tell us, we're veering off of what that original North Star looked like and felt like.
Yeah.
And maintaining the continuity of that team around a certain project is really what's critical, and harder now than it's ever been because of the budgetary constraints we have, because of how performance has been less consistent in our business over the last 4 or 5 years. That task that I just articulated is harder than it's ever been.
Yeah. I mean, you have to violently defend the vision and the authenticity of the property at every stage of the game. And I can imagine, especially now that margins are tight and costs have increased, that's harder than ever.
Yeah. And I think, we've been fortunate to be in positions. I'll use Pier 66, a resort we opened in Fort Lauderdale about a year ago. The vision from ownership came from 4 or 5 years ago. The design development process was intensive. It was very deliberate, very well articulated from the get-go. Ownership had an absolutely clear vision about what this resort was going to mean, not only to Fort Lauderdale, but the state of Florida and to the entire Eastern U.S., to the entire country, and felt that it was not only possible, but an obligation to the legacy of this place in Fort Lauderdale to be competing nationally with the best resorts that are on offer in this country. And to have that vision and to have the commitment, to stick to the commitment that ownership, Tavistock Development Group, to stick to that commitment. We were part of that. We were part of designing every space and thinking through the concepting of every restaurant. It wasn't easy, but when you see it open and you see how the guests and how the team reacts to doing it the right way, it's easy to understand. It's easier to understand why certain projects succeed and why others struggle.
So what are some of your favorite projects that you've had the ability to work on?
Oh, I could think of any number of projects that stand out in my career. I think one from my days at Nuovo, we had a hotel in Baltimore called Hotel Revival that was a great example of rallying a property around and inside of its community. The way we articulated the position of the property and the people that were running the property and how they were empowered to support the community that they were in, particularly going through the COVID timeframe in Baltimore was special. And that's a very qualitative set of elements. The building is beautiful. It's an amazing hotel, but it was the people and the leaders who brought that property to life, but most importantly, made incredible connections within the community and made the property not just a hotel, not just a set of restaurants. It was a comforting, welcoming place for the community through a really tough period.
Just a big hug.
Yeah, and I think it's set that property up for sustainable success. That goodwill is not going to change overnight. That's something that's very sticky. I look at within our portfolio today, we have we operate a small brand but a growing brand of properties called Outbound, which are hotels in kind of amazing destination locations in Stowe, Vermont, and Jackson, Wyoming, and coming soon in Yosemite, coming soon in Park City.
Cool.
That really take, when I said earlier, turning a building inside out. How do you take a guest experience at a hotel level and translate that into nature, translate that into the activities that they're experiencing and how they're enjoying the community, the destination that they're in. And with Outbound, we're able to do that. We don't want to be a 5-star, $1,000 a night property. We want to bring that level of experience and that enjoyment to a much wider audience. And in places like Jackson, which is obviously rarefied air when it comes to hospitality, you have plenty of untouchable type of price points in a place like Jackson. Yet, we're able to provide an experience that market has never seen in an amazing location. By having a little bit more fun and being a little bit more connected to the local community, but also the natural environment that the property is sitting in.
What are you working on right now? What's in development that you're most excited about?
So I'll double down there for a second with Outbound. We have multiple hotels under renovation within that brand, in Sedona, Arizona, and Park City. Property opening in Yosemite later this summer, and so seeing that brand continue to grow and come to fruition is very rewarding. In a different end of the spectrum or different type of market, we were fortunate to partner with the ownership of the Seaport Hotel in Boston 6 months ago, which is an incredible evolving part of Boston. It's evolved dramatically over the course of the last 20 years in the Seaport in Boston, but really a property that literally started the Seaport neighborhood, and a family that was behind that wanted to create something special that would help catalyze activity and development within the Seaport neighborhood. So we were able to come into that property 6 months ago, take over management, start to think about what the vision of the next generation is for that particular property. And, those are the kinds of projects that I think get our team most excited, because we know what we're doing now will positively impact the team, a year, 5 years, 20 years down the road. It'll positively impact that city 5, 15, 20 years down the road. And that's the longer term beneficial impact of what we do.
So I know you travel a ton, but when you're not traveling for work and you go on a vacation, where do you like to stay?
So I'm not fancy. I'll start there. I will appreciate a luxury resort as much as anyone else. And we have a number in our portfolio that are very special to all of us. When I'm traveling for my own benefit, I value these days quiet and solitude and simplicity. Those are probably the themes that I'm after. That could be on a remote beach somewhere when it's snowing in Colorado. That could be a place proximate to us like Santa Fe, New Mexico, that has a history and authenticity to it that is hard to replace. That could be a place like New Orleans that has amazing music and brings an element to your visit or to an experience that you can't get anywhere else. Those are the things that I'm after. I find that with as much as we travel and the hectic nature of the lives that we lead, simplicity and solitude is something I value as I get older.
Absolutely. Well, as we wrap up, there's one question that I ask everyone that I'd love to hear from you. Can you tell us about a place or an interaction or an experience that recently reminded you of why art and culture matter, and what struck you about that experience?
So I was fortunate or lucky to set foot in a place called Sage Lodge outside of Yellowstone National Park several months ago. And the property happened to have some really interesting art that spoke to me for whatever reason. Part of it's being in Montana, my home state, and seeing or being refreshed with the images of what that state is all about, and nature and wildlife, and the power of the natural environment that defines Montana. As I walked through the property, I noticed a number of pieces that spoke to me that really articulated what Montana was about. To the hotel's credit, really integrated well into what that hotel's positioning is and what location that they inhabit in outside of Yellowstone. Came to find out that artist is I believe 20-year-old artist named Avery Iris, who's in Bozeman, Montana.
Amazing.
And I've subsequently bought her art myself.
Fantastic.
And have, it for me, bringing those thoughts or images or memories or comfort of what that natural environment in Montana, and bringing that into my home personally was something that was really rewarding. And so to be lucky enough to be in that particular property, to see this art, I've been able to interact with her, kind of understand her story and where she's come from and the beautiful creations that she puts out in the world, was a nice full circle of what we can experience in our buildings and what we can take away from them. And then again, potentially bring them into our own lives into our own homes.
I love that. You'll have to send me a photo. I'm dying to see what you got. That's amazing. Well, if our listeners want to learn more about you and the work that you're doing, where can they find you?
So I guess LinkedIn is always an easy way to track me down. CoralTreeHospitality.com is our website, so you could learn more about our portfolio and what we're doing, where we're growing, and the makeup of our team and what we're all about. So happy to interact with anyone and everyone that's listening.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for being on the show today. We will include those links and links to other topics that you heard about today in our show notes. And I really appreciate you sharing your stories about involving the local community and bringing that vision and authenticity through in every single level on the work that you're doing. So I hope that sometime soon you get that getaway that is quiet and simple and brings you solitude, and then you get to cook a little along the way.
I'll do my best. Thank you, Martha.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.